my room on my room. I don't have Euro. Oh yeah, I forgot you don't. Once you rerun.
Okay, but at least you're working there.
It's okay, how's your eye though? Exactly.
That's it.
Yeah, exactly. One chapter right now.
Oh, I mean, that's bad. Rolling Tails is okay, actually. Rolling Tails is all right.
Oh, TTDS?
I have obviously, you don't really have to love one. You only get for the passive.
Yeah. You only do one TTDS. Alright, where's your Discord? It better be dark mode. Okay. not even like full blind. Yeah, I'm gonna keep moving the goalpost, okay? Don't worry about it.
Relationship with this.
Because you're gonna keep taking those L's, man. Like, keep taking those L's.
I've always cared about their opinions. Hi guys.
Hello.
Sort of commentary, or you have questions that you want to say or ask, yada yada. The OffKai Discord has panel room number 1, and you can just put stuff in there. I may not be able to see it, but and I may not have a Q&A section, but I will see it and I will be very grateful. Hi. It's doing a panel distantly almost feels like the beginning of streaming again because you can't see people's commentary, but it's whatever. Hello, I am Dee. Let me actually pop this up welcome everyone to Anime Tabletop RPGs. I have to ask, can you hear me over my music? If not, I will lower it down and turn off completely.
Sounds great.
It's clear? It's clear. Cool, fantastic. Hi everyone, welcome to Anime Tabletop RPGs. If you're here, you have this like weird, like intersectional thought of anime and tabletop RPGs, and you want to either combine them or pursue this, and it's a very niche and specific interest, but they keep popping in. Let me drink my water. It's there at the front, and Hi, I'm wait, what am I presenting here? Come on. I'm Dice Windy. I've been doing panels like this for God as long as I know. And I did this panel specifically like 4 times ago, and I should be more prepared, but every time you're not. I most notably did this panel at Crunchyroll Expo, and maybe again this year, who knows. Who am I? I'm Dee. I've been pro gymming for 15 years. I'm sorry my voice sounds really weird. My entire family is COVID. It's like my 4th time with it, don't worry. I've been a pro gym for 15 years. I'm a TTRPG journalist/researcher. I am what you would know as an Any judge, and an Any is like a Tabletop RPG Excellence Award, award like once a year. It's typically at Gen Con. It's like the one thing that we Gen Con. I've been there for a couple years. I get sent hundreds of RPGs a year, and I have no room. I have 5 bookshelves, and 4 bookshelves, 5 piles on my floor, and my dressers and my side tables are all covered in books. I honestly cannot, I need to get rid of these. This is just kind of like, how can I say, this is why you should potentially care about my opinion. This is kind of my entire life. My entire life has been 2 things. 1, I've been either rolling dice or I've been a massive weeb. As you can tell by my anime avatar here, or as you might say, a VTuber for this VTuber convention, I have transcended the mortal flesh. I stream primarily tabletop RPGs, and I design them, and I talk about them, and if you ever want any more recommendations about games, you can catch me at my Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, it's at the very top. It's all the same, Dice Windy. But yeah, that's me. Anyways, today we're going to be asking a question. What are anime tabletop RPGs? But before that, we have to answer, what are tabletop RPGs in general? And while this is framed as an overall discussion, it's primarily more of a historical recount of all the anime tabletop RPGs through all the years. And we'll be catching up from like as early as, I want to say 1986 to 85. Oh, I should have added the Tunnels and Trolls slide. Anyways, I'll be talking about influential tabletop RPGs throughout the years. Japanese tabletops in specific because it's a very different design ethos, as well as some of my personal recommendations, or only recommendations, as many anime tabletop RPGs aren't exactly present in the West, but we'll get there. All right, so how this panel is structured is about, it's 1 hour, right? I think it's 1 hour. Someone yay name me, it's an hour-ish, I think. Okay, 1 hour. I plan to talk for mostly about like 45 minutes, and I'll answer questions if you got it. If there's none, I can just let you out all early. But anyways, first you have to ask a question. What makes a tabletop role-playing game? I used to have a slide here that talked about the importance of dice, the meaning behind it, and all sorts of things. But much like this panel, the answer was found in anime. I have a clip here from an anime that you could or could not watch, but it has one really good tabletop RPG. It has one really good tabletop RPG episode. So there's that. But here you go.
So TRPG stands for Tabletop Role-Playing Game? I can't say I've ever heard of that before. I've heard of that term, but that's about it. And I've read a retelling of a campaign before, but never actually played anything myself.
Well, a TRPG is a game where you advance by interacting with characters within a world, and roll a dice to determine how your decisions and actions pan out. Each player creates their own character and participates in the story presented to them. Most of the events will be determined by the GM or Game Master, but depending on what the players choose to do, the story could take a turn that even the GM didn't expect.
Are we allowed to make a character that's completely different from us in real life?
Of course! Playing as someone different is one of the biggest appeals of any RPG. But there's nothing wrong with making your character exactly like yourself.
Exactly like myself.
The world for this game is your typical one of swords and magic. You're all adventurers who have just arrived in a new kingdom. With that out of the way, let's create some characters. I've taken the liberty to make samples of partially predetermined abilities. To make things easier, I'll use them as templates.
I can only recommend that anime if you really like anime like Emote, no, not that one. Like Aramanga Sensei.
Yeah!
Really good episode about tabletop RPGs. I swear to God, it has one good episode about tabletop RPGs. I was sold that the entire anime was like, oh, this is the only tabletop RPG anime. And they are technically correct because there's no other anime that really covers tabletop RPGs in that manner. There's many that were inspired by tabletop RPGs. Chaos Head, Adventures with Lodrus War, ReZero guy, the guy that made ReZero plays tabletop RPGs. The Konosuba guy plays tabletop RPGs. Log Horizon guy, Goblin Slayer guy. They all love tabletop RPGs. If you're a writer, especially a creative, in Japan, you will see tabletop RPGs very frequently. It's like a pastime there. But anyways, so aside from what he was talking about, where a tabletop role-playing game is primarily about creating characters, interacting with the world, I like the Japanese term TRPG over the more westernized term tabletop RPG, or to heathens, you just call it D&D, and I don't mean anything against Dungeons and Dragons. But, okay, so I know this friend of mine, okay, so I got this friend of mine, I can find her. Fine, she's legal. But so she says D&D for literally everything. She says, we're gonna do a space D&D, we're gonna do a Star Wars D&D, we're gonna do this D&D, and it's like, it's not actually Dungeons & Dragons, it's Starfinder, or it's literally the Star Trek RPG. There are people out there that use D&D for everything. I personally prefer the Japanese term TRPG because I believe it equally splits these two very important aspects. TG, which is traditional gaming, and RP, or role-playing. You mix them together, and you realize how intrinsically connected TRPGs are. I think this sort of thing is, it really shows a balance, and that, say, the dice mechanics or the role-playing shouldn't take precedence over one or the other. And many modern games will have that problem, where they emphasize either the mechanics more or the role-playing more, and I believe if you don't have it in equal measure, it's not really a game. There's allowing me to be just a little bit elitist. But yeah, so that's what a tabletop role-playing game is. Now, what makes an anime tabletop role-playing game is you take all of that, and you mix it with anime branding and tropes. Like, has anyone seen that Giga video talking about how anime is a brand? Anyone seen that?
Yeah.
No one's seen that?
Yes.
But it talks about how you can look at something and understand its inspirations and the kind of storylines and the character developments are distinctly anime. So I will say Avatar Last Airbender counts as anime, even though it's not in Japan. I will say certain, let's say, Chinese or Korean like animations are anime because they invoke the same feelings. So if animes become a brand that you can use other things to make them distinctly more anime, then that can work with RPGs, tabletop RPGs, board games. You can have anime board games. There's like a handful of them out there. There's I'm trying to think of one that's not degenerate. I know this one where you play a tentacle monster that goes through high school and you hug everyone for points.
Let's go!
A channel, which is about making your own Lucky Star channel type of show. It is, we get this kind of thing. It's just, anime branding can be mixed with anything. So, specifically what does it mean when you come to an anime tabletop RPG? It has certain things attached to it after all the years of which it's mismatched together. So you have high customizability and abilities that are involved. They explore several anime-like themes. They're capable of expressing one or more anime genres, and they often lack distinct level systems. This is very specific to more Western tabletop RPGs, Western anime tabletop RPGs, but we'll get there as well. There's this very weird split because Western tabletop RPGs went to Japan and inspired its own little split branch that I can't really explain other than like tracking two different timelines of the history, which is really neat, and it's why I'm so obsessed with this topic. I love talking about this. God, I love anime. Anyways.
Preach.
So are no longer relevant. I know you guys clapping, but I can't hear it. Give me the sound, Raldon. Give me the sound.
Oh, that's awkward to call out. Yeah.
Okay. Hi. I can now hear you. Someone say hi.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you. There's a little delay, but we're good. Okay. First off, where we're gonna go. One of the first anime tabletop RPGs that really exploded here in the West was something called Nectar. It was written by a guy named Arthostorian. I will be using his name repeatedly because Arthostorian is infamous? That might be a good word. He'll pop up repeatedly. It was the first anime RPG available to anyone ever. It was highly influenced by Gundam, and it featured heavily customizable mechs. Nowadays superseded by Lancer. Does anyone play Lancer?
No. I played it once.
Yeah, good on you. It's a really good game. It's really free, so go ahead and just go for it. It majorly features a D10 system. I personally do not like D10 systems because I'm an elitist weirdo. Because D10s are the only non-standard die shape? No. Yeah, non-regular. They don't have an equal amount of sides and points that end off in the same, like, sides. Oh my god, I should have memorized this term already. So, if you land on an edge on a D6, it will equally land on either of the two edges. However, a D10 has this weird two-pointed structure, and the side is all these edges, so it's not an equal amount of faces it can land on if it tumbles. I don't like D10s. Anyways. Mechton ended up laying a massive groundwork for future tabletop RPGs, and it was majorly influential for the rest of ever. Many tabletop RPGs now made in the West were heavily influenced by this guy, Arthostorian. And God, I don't hate him, but I want him to stop.
Well, he did.
He then later on made another game, Teenagers from Outer Space. I had several editions with, I need to talk editions about the other one. The guy made 3 editions. He tried to do a Kickstarter campaign in 2018, and I think it succeeded, but he just didn't do anything with it, so he returned it all. So this is, once again, Arthostorian. He's still around. He's the guy that made Cyberpunk Red. I think he also has hands on The Witcher. I don't quote me in that one. Arthostorian has the hands on a lot of stuff. He's heavily, so Teenage from Outer Space was heavily inspired by games, anime such as Ursa Yatsura, Ranma 1/2, and it's all about like people that are like fish out of the water. This was pre-isekai. So Ursa Yatsura, Ranma 1/2, where he was raised his entire life in like a regular, like well, in an irregular, I'm training martial artist, and now he has to go to regular school. This is all quote unquote isekai before isekai was termed. Each edition, which had no benefit of actually being different editions, they only really added a table or two, and they didn't change any major rules. I don't know why this guy sold 3 editions of the same goddamn book except adding 1 table. It's like if D&D added 1 table, and then they said, hi, this is D&D 5.1, but there's just 1 table, and it still costs $80. Anyways, after his 3rd edition, Arthostorian went on an 8-year hiatus. More games Arthostorian currently is holding hostage from you. Bubblegum Crisis, Votoms, and Dragon Ball Z. You cannot have a Dragon Ball or Dragon Ball Z tabletop RPG made by anyone else but Arthostorian because he already made it and he's not letting go of the IP. What he liked to do is he bought up IPs for cheap because, you know, moving stuff from Japan to America was easier at the time. But so he just made a bunch of games like this. Later on, another game that would show a lot of influence on the Western scene is Tanenban Zero, which was released in 1998. Oh, Tanenban was released in 1998. Zero was an edition in 2015. I haven't unearthed yet. It was one of the first Japanese RPGs to be fully translated into English via official sources. It has a little bit of like an anime fantasy feel, but it's kind of like a massive conglomerate anime because it involves like, oh, we're gonna add like robots and fighter pilots, but also demons and oni, etc., etc. This is where a lot of the Western world ended up learning that Japanese tabletop RPGs not only come in not typical A4, A5, like it's like half paper size, but more manga size. So when you see certain games like Tanenban Zero right now being printed, or other games being printed at a really absurd size, I don't think Ryutama is at a weird size. Kamagakuri is being printed by drive-thru. If you find a Japanese tabletop RPG off drive-thru or print on demand, they will always print it on like A4, A5 instead of like the B4?
B5.
Yeah, the manga size. And the thing is, this distinction is actually really important as to the pricing and how Japanese tabletop RPGs and Western tabletop RPGs had a mix and a split of their popularity. So, first off, before we go on a little bit more into Japanese tabletop RPGs, I want to talk to you about setting agnostic, i.e. generic tabletops. Games designed to facilitate any genre, but can be used to do anime. So, not any genre, but like any genre in anime. So, Big Eye Small Mouth was a massive game for its time. It was made by Guardians of the Order, and everyone thought they died, except they didn't. Do you guys want to know why they disappeared for like 13 years?
Yeah.
It's kind of drama-y.
No money.
Spill the tea. Tell us.
Alright, spelling tea. Alright. So Guardians of the Order, after releasing 3rd edition, the guy didn't pay his artists and a lot of people. He didn't pay a lot of his workers. Yeah, and it's not good. So I believe he sold BESM to White Wolf. So if you're familiar with at that time Vampire the Masquerade, before they then later sold on to another group for a while, White Wolf owned BESM, I believe. He came back 13 years later as Discami. I was surprised because I thought maybe, oh man, this company, Discami, picked up BESM out of nowhere. That's really cool. But then I checked their address and their registry, and it is literally the same fucking apartment. The guy didn't move for 13 years. And if you look, I own 4th and 3rd. 3rd, I don't get that. It was like, before 4th came out, to get a copy of 3rd, I had to pay like $130 or something. It was insane. But Discami, when they released 4th edition, I was going through it, and a lot of the art is the same. Yeah, so the guy is still using the art. He didn't pay his previous guys. Anyways, Big Eye Small Mouth is kind of a mess. But go play 4th edition, it's okay. Anyways, it was one of the first anime RPGs that marketed itself as an anime RPG, and I would believe it's highly influential. And the split between 3 and 4 was a difference between its tri-stat system and a roll/under system. So it's still relevant to play 3, but 4 has a little bit more support right now. The guy is also trying to make a Big Eye Small Mouth for an anime 5e because it sells. And I'm willing to bet he's gonna still keep reusing the same art. God, please don't tattle on me to him, please. But everyone knows this drama. This set the stage for what I would believe would be the following better system agnostic system, which is right here. This is OVA, Open Versatile Anime. It was primarily its 2nd edition. I would say it's its best version. It was released in 2014, and it took up the mantle immediately after BESM went under. So it's very styled by like J Tabletop RPGs, but heavily influenced by BESM. You'll see this because you'll have a list of abilities costing, oh, this costs this much, this costs this much, this is 1 skill rank, 2 skill rank, 3 skill rank, and you can just build characters like that. Like lists and lists of abilities that you slowly rank up. Is very Nectar, which later inspired BESM, which later inspired OVA, and later inspired other games like Valor. So there is a very distinct, quote-unquote, Western anime tabletop RPG look. It's very clear. It's very distinct when you start seeing it. Of the Western anime tabletop RPGs, this is my personal recommendation. Yeah. There's 2 other anime RPGs I would say are fairly relevant. There's Valor on the left here, and there's Gratuitous Anime Gimmick on the right. Gratuitous Anime Gimmick was something I had to pick off drive-through, and I thought it carried a lot of good Western energy mixing with a lot of anime tropes. I liked it. It kind of came out of nowhere as a surprise. Valor was made by people in Seattle. I do not remember the name of the company, but it is also really neat. It has something they call a Valor system. So you can get Valor by, I think, either taking a lot of damage or making a heroic anime speech. You can actually power up in-game mechanically by making speeches about friendship, about love, about not giving up, and it's really neat. But the problem with it comes that Valor is really messy in character creation. The guidelines aren't very good, and in order to actually make a thing, you have to flip around constantly, and you're still not really sure how to make a character. Its mechanics are interesting. I know I'm like really fluffing this one up, but I have a lot of complicated feelings with it. Because I wanted to love Valor, but Valor is like a kudere. they're so cold, eventually you might want to just give up entirely. But enough about Western anime tabletop RPGs. Tanenban Zero didn't really count as a Western tabletop RPG, but it was a really good introduction into Japanese RPGs because now we have Japanese RPGs. TLDR on this entire section. Go read this manga called Quick Start. It was never officially translated, but I'm pretty sure you guys can figure out where to read that anyways. So Japanese tabletop RPGs have a very distinct history. Before I get on to what it actually is, I want to get into a little bit of the history of it. So when Dungeons and Dragons was created, it's created in like 1976, 78. It ended up getting translated over to Japan by 1986, 1985, one of those. But Tunnels and Trolls was Dungeons and Dragons like made after Dungeons and Dragons, being like, this D20 system is stupid. Let's make it simple. Let's make it D6s. But however, these guys also got to marketing and translating Tunnels and Trolls. I want to say half a year before Dungeons and Dragons went to Japan. And this is really interesting because, so Dungeons and Dragons was first. It inspired Tunnels and Trolls, but Tunnels and Trolls got to Japan first to influence it. Another thing that got into, I think even like 1 year before in 1984, Traveler, if anyone's played Traveler, that got into Japan earlier than both of those. So the main reason why, say, Tunnels and Trolls and Traveler really picked up steam versus Dungeons and Dragons in Japan is because of the dice, exactly the dice. So Japan had difficulties getting stuff in the 1980s. It wasn't as, the world wasn't as globalized then, it was very more closed off. If you've seen any Yakuza game set in that time, you'll see, let's say, garbage everywhere because they weren't able to just put it all into a barge and ship it out to Africa. Japan does some wacky stuff nowadays. But back in the 80s, so they weren't as globalized. So it was really hard to import weird shaped dice like D10s, D20s, D8s, D4s. So what they did is that they latched onto Traveler and Tunnels and Trolls, which use exclusively D6 systems. So a lot of Japanese tabletop RPGs have simple 2D6 systems, but often more D6 systems. But another one that also really picked up was Call of Cthulhu and its D10s, but that's another thing entirely. So over there in Japan, they have a lot of reusable characters because no one has time, and everything is designed around one-shots. So here in the West, everything is kind of like assumed that when you decide to play a game, it's like, oh, we're going to do a campaign. We're going to set aside time every week for like forever to play this game, to play our characters. But that's not the case in Japan. Does anyone understand Japan's like working conditions and its like working market?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you guys know, black company stuff. So, for people that don't, Japan has this kind of like, a number of things where like you have to do overtime, you don't get paid extra, and several companies have a culture where you can't leave until your direct superior leaves. And then your direct superior can just stay there for like 5 hours, and suddenly it's like 9 o'clock, and then now you get to go home. So with a culture like that, do you think a campaign can actually work? No. And this was a major influence in Japan's tabletop RPG culture. In its game design as well, because all the games are focused around scenarios and one-shots that are all consolidated into like single sessions. When you level up in Japan, a lot of games, rather than leveling up your explicit character, you quote-unquote level up as a player. So they're okay if you are, let's say, a level 3 player, and you can create a level 3 character. And you can just make a new character for every game you go into, because it's never expected you're going to be there more than one game. And that's kind of depressing. They still have campaigns, but they're seen as more special events because it's straight up a small group of people saying, okay, we are going to commit to meeting up at this time for 4 weeks, maybe 5 if we're lucky. You see what I mean? It's not like those endless D&D campaigns that you see in the West. It's very different. Japanese tabletop RPGs are typically physical with very little PDFs around. Because of manga printing over there in Japan, TRPGs tend to be smaller, shaped like manga, printed on the same kind of like reusable type of paper. But do you know what this does to the price of the games? Can anyone guess? Extremely cheap. So in Dungeons and Dragons, you can get a player's handbook for $50, $65. In Japan, you can get a tabletop RPG for $13. You can go to a game store on average day and buy like 8. It's freaking insane. If you want to, with the same amount of money you used to buy like core rule book and a manual, that's like 12 books, maybe like 14. So it's become a lot more casual of a market over in Japan. So you can just go to the store, pick it up, and it's, oh my god. And all those books fit on the same shelf. You have to actually place bigger books on bigger shelves rather than manga shelves. You could just go to any regular store and find these. Anyways, so in Japan, it's really hard to find other players in Japan, unless you are integrated with the culture. So in Japanese tabletop RPGs that I can talk about, that are like one of the more popular ones out there, Sword World, Alshard, and Arenrod. All D6 systems, I think. Don't quote me on Alshard. I'm pretty sure it's D6. I'm not entirely certain. If you want to read more, there are. Can I talk about this? Yeah, it's fine. So there is a Sword World 2.0 translation project that has translated a lot of the books. I cannot tell you where to get them, but there's some really good places where you can find Sword World 2.0 and get literally all the rules and learn how to play it. I just finished playing it. It's really fun. It's really great. I'm sorry. Anyways. Arenrod, also here on the far right, though I should know a little bit more about, is also based on Ragnarok Online, if that's something you're a fan of. So, the 2 games on the right were actually inspired by Sword World, which I believe Sword World was created, I think 1989, 1990, because Sword World was inspired by Tunnels and Trolls, which creates now its own Japanese tabletop RPG culture. So in the West, we were majorly influenced by Nectar, that turned into BESM. Over there, they got influenced by Tunnels and Trolls, which then turned to Sword World, which influenced all the other games there. So you can now start seeing this Japanese anime tabletop RPG identity versus the Western tabletop RPG identity. And it's, I feel I should add a slide just for this. It's a really good topic. Anyways, it's really hard to find Japanese tabletop RPGs. However, our pals at Yen Press, I am not sponsored, I'm just a fan. They recently released Konosuba. They literally translated Konosuba and brought it over here. We have it. It's okay. It's pretty good. But they're also planning on bringing Goblin Slayer in August. So you can play both of these. And if you wanted to understand what Alshard and Arenrod are, Konosuba is actually influenced by Arenrod, and Goblin Slayer is influenced by Alshard. And the systems are similar, but they're like modified. So Konosuba, if you really want to understand what Arenrod is like, it's actually pretty good. I did the math on Megumin's explosion. And it can do anywhere up to, a regular spell in the game can do like 13 to like 30 damage. A Mega Man's explosion does approximately about up to 90 to 140. So you get a scale of how insane Mega Man is. Anyways, another game I really like to suggest when it comes to Japanese tabletop RPGs that actually got to make over into the West here. It's a game called Kamagakuri, and I'll introduce you to my character Shui Hatsumugami, and you'll know that she's actually Rika, but also she's my character. Do not steal OC. So Shui Hatsumugami in Kamagakuri was she's going to be my example of how customizable Japanese tabletop RPGs are. Because Japanese tabletop RPGs were more influenced by Tunnels and Trolls, it has more of a level system than the Western ones, which is really interesting. Because to make things more anime, here in the West, we're like, oh, anime RPGs shouldn't have levels. Over there, they're like, levels all the time. Let's go. So at level 1, Shui oh, my thing's not here. Oh, my paper is not here. Oh, the sheet was supposed to appear. That's a shame. So, okay, Shui Hatsumugami has this abilities. So she has a sword, and she can attack with it at a distance as an ability. However, another ability I have splits the sword into 3 targets on the board. However, another ability I have lets me move the target's hit by 5 to 10 feet. So I was able to turn my one single sword slash into 3 shadow sword slashes, which pulled the enemies together, which in the same turn, I was then able to cast a grand invocation and nuke them all to existence. Do you know what level she was? Ooh, does anyone want to guess?
1, 3, 4.
Yes, she was level 1. Damn, that was really good.
Oh,
Yeah, so compared to, say, a Dungeons and Dragons character, where it's like, oh man, I'm a rogue, I can sneak attack and I can hide. My Shui Hatsumugami at level 1 was able to do all sorts of other things because Japanese anime tabletop RPGs really want to emphasize you to feel great for your one session, because that might be the only session you play for a month or 2. Versus Western tabletop RPGs, which are a lot more about gradual growth. Japanese RPGs tend to be very extra to make you feel good because real life sucks and your boss yells at you and you're not allowed to go home until it's 8 o'clock. Anyways. Next up, would anyone like to guess the most popular tabletop RPG in Japan?
Call of Cthulhu?
God damn it.
You kinda left the
all
back.
about weaves.
You let the cat out of the bag with that one earlier.
I know. Call of Cthulhu is the most popular game in Japan, period. More popular than Dungeons & Dragons, than Pathfinder, more than Sword World, any other game there combined. Call of Cthulhu is riding high in Japan. In 2008, I believe, one replay. It was a replay is like a retelling of what happens during an RPG. Popped up on their Nika Nika Doga, I believe. And it got so popular that it spread all over the Japan's culture, or Japan's tabletop RPG culture, which is actually a lot smaller than you'd realize. So it got really popular. They brought in a Call of Cthulhu more, and it went everywhere. If I look on the TRPG tag in Twitter right now, more than half are posts about Call of Cthulhu. I'm willing to bet. I am actually willing to bet you money. If I saw 20 posts in the TRPG tag, 10 of them at least would be Call of Cthulhu related. That's how confident I am and of its popularity there. The fun fact about Call of Cthulhu is it does not reflect our Call of Cthulhu, another separation from Western and Japanese. So, when was the last time I drank water? Hold on.
Hydrate.
Hydrate. Okay. So Call of Cthulhu over there was very, because there's so many splat books, i.e. homebrew or like custom stuff, you can find on the same table for the same game a detective, a samurai, a magical girl, and a rock star. And they all fit. I don't know why the magical girl fits, but she actually does. It upsets me a little bit, but it's fine. So Call of Cthulhu is a lot more expressive with these sort of things. I'd love to go into more pictures, but that might actually break the PG rating of this panel. Anyways. So, we're going to deja vu through a bunch of games I might recommend to you guys. Very Western-y games that really, these are Western games that have anime spirit or flavoring and tropes that I suggest to try, or there might actually just be straight up Japanese games. So, I would, Main RPG isn't exactly soft and gentle, but it tries to pretend it is. There is a mechanic for stripping clothes and insanity.
It's great. Nobody's fine.
I like Main RPG, it's fine. But there's also Ryutama, which is like anime Oregon Trail. It's fine. And Golden Sky Stories, which is furry friends, the kimono friends, but it's very sweet. It has this weird mechanic. I think it does have it has a very weird mechanic. So when games don't have aren't focused on combat, they kind of go like, they just kind of toss in like, oh, if you're in a physical dispute, here you go rule. Kids on Bikes has this, and Golden Sky Stories I think has it. I need to double check, but I'm pretty sure when combat occurs, you roll a die, and one of the results is you just die.
I think the Golden Sky Stories
everything
rule.
else is gentle.
I think the Golden Sky Stories rule is if you decide to get in combat, cool, you hurt them, you big me.
Jesus Christ. So there you go. There's some quote-unquote soft and gentle RPGs. Sorry once again, there is a little bit of delay from what I hear from you guys, so I'm sorry if I interrupted any of you. Next up, this is what I call hyper anime action. There's Double Cross, Shinobigami, and Kamagakuri. Kamagakuri is my personal recommendation. I am a big fan of it. But can I talk real quickly about Kamagakuri?
Yeah.
Real quickly. So, Kamagakuri counts motorcycles as a two-handed long-range weapon. Yes, because it assumes you're either going to drive from a far distance, run them over, and then appear at another distance far away. So, I had a friend of mine, Coda. She did nothing but run people over, shoot them with a gun, and then teleport away. She would teleport using her motorcycle onto roofs, and then run people over from the roof onto the ground, and then end up back on the roof. It legitimately does not get more anime, I think, personally, than Kamagakuri. I love it. There's currently a print on demand in TTRPG. I hope they release a more like manga-based version, because honestly, it's really big. When you see games that are originally supposed to be manga printed out to be bigger, that's Double Cross and Kamagakuri in this page. The text looks really blown up, which is a shame. Double Cross, it's good because you get these like DNA codes or whatever, and you can like combine them. Like, oh, I could be the code that lets me control light, as well as the one that lets me transform into a demon. or I could be the one that transforms me into a furry, and the other one that also transforms me into a demon. It's neat. It's really neat. However, you're never going to be able to play it. I mean, if you print it. Because the company behind it that had the IP on it has ceased printing of it, so you can never get a print version again. I looked online. I could maybe buy it for $120 to $300, or buy the PDF from the drive-thru and print it out yourself on manga where it was designed to be on. So it's like $80 versus $300. So that's doable, but it's not quote-unquote official. But also your printing will probably be a little better. Of these three, the one that really does the manga style best, Shinobigami. It is printed on manga. It has introductory manga inside of it, and it looks good. It feels good. Though its skill system is a little weird. It's a little wacky. But that's not now, and I don't have enough experience in to really recommend it too hard. Moving on. If you like Mecha Lancer, it's good. Just go play Lancer. It's free. If you find it on itch, there's a free copy, and then you could get it printed for like more money, but the PDF is more than fine. Here's a Machine. If you like Evangelion a little bit more, it's pretty good. But it's not exactly. It's like if you're playing darts, it hits the board, but not the mark.
What about Cthulhu Tech?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
What about Cthulhu Tech?
So. The delay is killing me. I'm sorry.
And a shady.
All right.
You're in the Discord
So,
chat?
Magical Girls. So,
Oh shit.
Sorry, are you in the...
Fine, put it on Discord. I'll look at it.
I'm sorry.
Cthulhu Tech. Cthulhu Tech can, yes. I have not looked into it. I wish I could tell you I'm familiar with Call of Cthulhu, but I am not. I don't like the idea of creepy crawlies on my face. If it is, yeah. Give it a try, I guess. Cthulhu Tech. Not sure. I can't fully recommend it, but I will trust you. I trust the opinions of the people on the internet. That's what being a YouTuber tells you.
So you take L's.
So, for magical stuff, magical girls, there's three I like to recommend. Magical Fury by Ewan Clooney, or Aaron Clooney, it's pronounced Aaron. He's also the one that helped translate Golden Sky Stories and made RPG, and he's made his own other stuff. He's pretty great. Magical Fury is like a Powered by the Apocalypse version of his Magical Burst, which I don't think he's finished. He needs to finish that. It's really good. Magical Burst / Magical Fury is kind of based more on the Madoka style. Magical Girls. Glitter Hearts is more like Western, She-Ra kind of magical girl kind of feel. Girl by Moonlight is an upcoming game by Evil Hat, and they're really cool. I played it. It's Forged in the Dark / Blades in the Dark, but dark style magical girls a la Madoka. Here's three I think are unfittingly anime. I think Pathfinder is like extremely anime because even though it's very fantasy, it lets you do some wacky bull. I had a friend who's playing like a volcano person that released smoke, and he found out that there was a rule that you die if you are in like smog for like 9 rounds. So he made a grappler that just choked somebody and kept them in his smoke for 10 rounds.
Let's go!
It was not effective.
Oh. Never mind.
And so he just kept them in there and they just died. It was not effective, it wasn't good, but the fact you have the ability to make something stupid is very anime. Breakfast Cult is if you like SCP / the Foundation stuff, and stick all these supernaturals onto an island. It's really cute. I like it. It's very anime, actually. I guess knowing Call of Cthulhu, it actually really fits. Jesus. Savage Worlds is a very explosive kind of game. It's very anime as well. And games that absolutely exist, but are quote-unquote official. Ruby is pretty good. It's like the only Ruby tabletop RPG out there. I'm trying to make a game very similar to Ruby, and it mixes Ruby and God Eater, and it's really cool. I'll tell you about it later. It's on my website. Whatever.
Please do.
Also, there's something called Pokeroll. This is a Pokemon role-playing game, but it's called Pokeroll, like ROLE. And of the million Pokemon tabletop RPG out there, I would say Pokeroll is probably the best. It's like the best one because it stops trying to emulate the game, what Pokemon Tabletop United tries to do, but it actually tries to mimic more the anime. It's very cinematic. I like it. And I think with that, that's my panel. We only got 10 minutes. But you can find me Twitter, Dice Queen D, Twitch, Dice Queen D, YouTube, TikTok, same thing. It's a very hard to steal name. I also have an email if you want to ask me questions. Twitter is really good. I look at DMs constantly because I'm addicted to the internet. Okay, now I'm gonna look at the Discord. What about non-Japanese anime tabletop RPGs like Adult Beyond Fantasy? It's good, but it's like kind of out of style nowadays. You can play it, but it had some more archaic game design elements to it. But Anima is totally a thing that you can look into. I might want to research more into it to really show its different identity. It didn't really fit in the Western versus Eastern anime RPG identity thing I was going for during this entire panel, but it is a good suggestion. With increased globalization of tabletop RPGs, do you expect the different lineages and mechanics to start intermingling? No. I want them to. I am trying to be one that is trying to intermingle Western and Japanese TRPGs. I call myself a TRPG VTuber, not a TTRPG VTuber or D&D VTuber, because I want to spread the term TRPG so people can understand they're all interconnected. I believe a lot of things are holistic. They are all really connected, and we should be able to have this intermingling and mix, but there isn't enough of it. Records of Lotus War is a TRPG given anime life? Yes. It is also, it was originally influenced by Dungeons and Dragons, but was later adapted to more Sword World. So Sword World 2.0 will have Records of Lotus War stuff. I'm enjoying this Arthostorian rant. I hate him. I don't hate him. He's like a weird uncle that stole your Game Boy and he's never given it back. Agnostic will decision to have Magical Girl, Spike Out Soldier, and SRP in one session. Yes, you can have like all of those elements together. It's really common. A system agnostic game means it can mimic many different genres such as romance, sci-fi, fantasy. It can do all of them. Typically, when you make a campaign, you pick one and you stick with it, but etc. Kamagakuri, you funded that when you went through dying. I'm good on you, Millie. Good job, Millie. Kamagakuri needs love. Is Oregon Trail in the sense of some actual historical route like Tokaido or just a wholly fictional setting? It's more like a wholly fictional setting with dragons. The GM is a dragon. So in Ryutama, the GM is a dragon in kind of humanish form, and they're kind of just following the party and just recording all of this in the journal, which is really cute because the GM can influence the story, being like, "Hi, I'm going to introduce myself as like a tiny little mascot character that teaches you where to go." It's a very cute interaction, but it is very Oregon Trail-y in that you are a wagon traveling across the world, trying to get one place to another place. So. Encounters tend to be more environmental. So a bridge is broken, or you need to get up like a dirty slope, or a place is burning down. What do you do? Where are the best places to find people to play those games you showed today? Thanks. Playing any of these games? Sorry, Roll20 is quote unquote your best place, but that's really hard to find because here's the sad truth. I looked on Roll20 looking at 5e games, I found 900 results. I put every anime RPG together, I found 4 results.
Okay, never mind.
That's how sad that is. If they exist, they get taken up immediately, or not at all. Your best place to find people to play these kinds of games are either podcasts that do actually already play it, or join my Discord, like Tari is saying.
Yeah.
You can find my Discord if you go to my Twitter and then you go to my Twitch. I don't put my Discord on my YouTube videos, which are all like Hololive Reaction Bowl, or Twitter, because if someone wants to join the community, I think having come to my Twitch shows you're kind of invested and not there to, what's the nicest way to say shitpost? Do these scribble?
Shitpost is fine. There was a panel here for shitposting. It works.
Okay. Shitpost, yay! Okay, how long is a typical tabletop RPG one-shot? Is it the kind of thing that can be used for a collaborative experience? I would 100% suggest doing it for a collaborative experience. Great one sessions. I would say 3 to 4 hours, easy. I've got 2 minutes, and I think eventually I'm going to get kicked off. More things. Once again, go follow me on Twitter or Twitch, whatever. You don't have to. But if you pop in my Discord, there are people that love talking about tabletop RPGs. I'm also trying to make my own game. Where are you? Oh, thank you. There's a lot. Thank you.
Person of culture.
It's okay. That's actually just where whenever I open up Google, that's just it. That's just I'm currently trying to make a game, and people have been doing a playtest about that. It mixes Ruby and God Eater, so you have transforming half gun, half sword weapons, trying to fight giant evil angelic techno beings, trying to drag you into a giant elemental storm. Something you might be interested in. I don't know. It's very anime inspired. So my Discord has. I might post my Discord link for like the rest of today on my Twitter, and to make it easier for you guys. But you will find a lot of tabletop RPG discussion, as well as maybe some people to play with. Anyway, thank you for popping in.
Thank you.
So, do I stop streaming or do I kick you guys out?
I'm here for the next panel, so.
Okay, bye!
Bye. Sayonara.